When will Bitcoin reach $1 million? Will Bitcoin ever reach $1 million? They are the questions that we will be answering in today's video. Just last week at Token 2049, we seen Arthur Hayes, the founder of BitMEX, talk about a $1 million Bitcoin in 2028. So this got people talking about this discussion again. In today's video, we're going to look at that video. We're going to look at other people's predictions for Bitcoin, when and if it will reach $1 million. We'll study both sides of the argument, and I'll also chime in with my thoughts on that as well. If you do enjoy the video, do drop a like, do subscribe to the channel, but let's get straight into it. So here's Arthur talking about Bitcoin on the stage at Token 2049 in Dubai last week. Now, I wasn't there this year, but I did see Arthur talk last year, and to be honest, he's a pretty good talker. He's entertaining, he makes some good points, but sometimes people would argue they go a little bit too far. So on the stage this time, he says Bitcoin could, keyword there, could, not will, hit $1 million by 2028. Now, of course, people are looking, this is in 3 years' time. Can Bitcoin do a 10x in the next 3 years? Now, many people would say this is a big ask, and rightly so. It is maybe a little bit far-fetched. Even if you believe Bitcoin will reach $1 million one day, in 3 years could be, a stretch. I put the question to Grok just to really study what people are thinking when it comes to Bitcoin reaching $1 million. Now, of course, there are some key factors that are going to drive Bitcoin to 1 million. You've got institutional adoption that we are seeing right now. You've got the halving cycles, which of course is bullish when it comes to tokenomics. The US strategic reserve. Now, of course, if Trump sticks to his word and continues to be pro-crypto, that's going to help at least for the next 4 years. You've got global adoption and scarcity. Again, 21 million coins, that is all there will ever be. Macroeconomic factors could go against Bitcoin as well, some people would argue, but that is open for discussion. And network effects. Now, some people have kind of threw it out there of a $1 million Bitcoin in 2025 this year. Highly unlikely, as Grok points out, and tend to agree. You've got Bitwise saying there's a 10% chance of Bitcoin hitting $1 million. I think 10% is fairly generous, to be completely honest. You've got Jan Free here suggesting in 2024 that Bitcoin could reach 1 million in days to weeks if, ETFs get approved and that kind of stuff. But again, it's pretty wishful thinking, and Polymarket has it at a 4% chance, which probably is more reasonable, but still fairly high, people would argue. But then you kind of drop into more realistic territory. You've got Arthur, obviously, 2028. You've got Cathie Wood from ARK saying $1 million by 2030. I think more people would be in line with that. But then they also have the bull case suggesting 1.5 to 3.8 million if institutions allocate 5 to 19% of their portfolios, which I think is a fairly high allocation, but, it's not off the cards in the long term. By 2030, that seems a big ask, but I can kind of see the thought process behind that, although it is still relatively ambitious. Of course, you've got Michael Saylor there, 1 mil by 2030. Jack Dorsey, obviously the founder of Twitter, he's a big Bitcoin maxi, thinking that it could be above 1 million in 2030, and a couple of other names there as well. Now, of course, it is more likely than 2025. There is no denying that. But can we see it in the next 5 years? I mean, I would be more than happy if it did. But I still think it'd be a little bit too much of an ask in the next 5 years. Maybe 500,000. I think 500,000 could be well within sight for the next 5 years. But I tend to fall into the same category here of good old Robert here, who of course is the writer of Rich Dad Poor Dad. He's relatively bullish on Bitcoin, but he even says 2035 because of the fiat devaluation, the US economic crisis. Tied into that kind of stuff, it will delay when Bitcoin reaches that target, and I don't think that is too unreasonable. 10 years, 10x, and a big part of this is to do with the market cap of Bitcoin now. This isn't some low cap meme coin that people can move very easily anymore. You have to keep that in mind, and we will talk about that shortly in the video. But then, of course, respect out there to Hal Finney, who obviously is one of the OGs who got Bitcoin up and running back in the day. And in 2009, he predicted $10 million Bitcoin in the long term, implying 1 million as an interim milestone by 2040 to 2050. And I think if he was still around today to see this, he would be pretty happy, I would like to think, with the way that the Bitcoin price is progressing. But not just that, fundamentally, the impact that it has had on the traditional economic world that we see. Bitcoin was created to disrupt that after the 2008 crisis, and it could have very easily fizzled out into nothing, but it's still here today, thriving more than ever. So of course he would be over the moon to see that. I'm pretty sure about that. And then you've got your challenges, counter arguments, of course, volatility, regulation, getting better by the day. If you would have gone back 5 years talking about regulation, it was just an absolute nightmare. Market cap feasibility, which we'll get into shortly. Skeptics, people have been skeptic all the way through Bitcoin's life, and here we are today. So I don't really see that as a challenge as much. And then you've got technical limitations, but that again is up for debate when it comes to developers more specifically as well. Now, we just mentioned about Cathie Wood, of course, a member of ARK, and they updated their 2030 prediction just a couple of weeks ago to $2.4 million. Like we said, I think that is a little bit far-fetched at this point, but the $1 million question is on the cards, and one big factor that we mentioned was market cap. Now, we can see here that gold is currently at a $22 trillion market cap at the time of recording, with Bitcoin just under $2 trillion. So there was always talks in the past, especially around maybe like 2018, 2019, of a flipping in, but it wasn't gold and Bitcoin, it was Bitcoin and Ethereum. Now, Bitcoin has made it very clear that it is number one, and it is going to remain number one. Some would say indefinitely. Anything can happen, of course, but many people would argue indefinitely. So the next flipping in that people have on the cards, now that silver is out of the way, silver, check, done, is gold. A hell of a long way to go. Over 10x needed in terms of market cap and price. And it's funny because obviously Bitcoin hanging around that 90k to 100k area right now. You would say that a $2 trillion market cap is pretty much very close to 100k. So if it was to 10x from there, you've got to a $20 trillion market cap, and you have got your $1 million Bitcoin. That's a lot of trillions. You look at the size of all these companies here, Apple, Microsoft, all around, 2.6, 2.9, 3.1 trillion. So we're going 6-7 times bigger than all of these companies and getting hot on the tail of gold. Now, can that happen in the long term? Well, Bitcoin is dubbed as the digital gold, so you would hope so. You would hope it would be Bitcoin and gold side by side, fighting it out. And that is where that conversation of 1 million pretty much, comes up. That's why people are talking about it. Because that is where Bitcoin's ultimate goal is, to be the new standard, to be the new safe haven, and to be, the biggest asset on the planet. And with a younger generation coming through, that is pretty much why people are even having this conversation. People don't want to lug their gold around with them. They want it online, digital, and safe, more importantly. That's the whole market cap conversation. But when it comes to Bitcoin's chances of doing this, you have to take tokenomics into account, because we can see here from this chart that the supply of gold only ever increases, on an average of around 1.7% annually. Whereas Bitcoin's supply is mathematically capped at 21 million forever. And if anything, it's actually decreasing. So, you've got supply going down, and this is due to people losing hard drives. We've seen it in the past, people searching through tips, trying to find in the garbage, trying to find their old hard drives to save their Bitcoin that is now worth millions and millions of dollars that they had from many, many years ago. So supply is going down, gold supply is going up, but then if the demand is going up for Bitcoin, whilst that supply goes down, then of course bullish. And that is what is going to help Bitcoin achieve this target, in my opinion. So that is going to be a big help. I mean, we can see it here. Gold just continuously increasing. Bitcoin's going to hit a peak and then bang. And that's why them halving mining rewards do play a big part with them 4-year halving. So now this is bullish. Just to back up that bullish sentiment right there, Jim Cramer says there is absolutely no way that Bitcoin goes above $1 million US. He just doesn't see it happening. So, we all love an inverse Cramer meme, and hopefully one day we can quote tweet this and tag him in it, and it's absolutely brilliant. The memes are great, but maybe he has a bit of Bitcoin on the side, says these things on purpose, and then he can do his victory laps behind the scenes. Maybe he's doing it for the bigger cause, doing it for us who want to see it. But yeah, just thought I'd include that in there. But just as we talked about in terms of supply and demand, you've got 21 million Bitcoin, but there is 8.1 billion people on the planet. Of course, not everybody can own one whole Bitcoin, and for many people it's very difficult to even get to that point now. Bitcoin is a lot more expensive than it was a few years ago, and it's not achievable. Maybe people are striving to get to 0.1 Bitcoin these days, and even then, the population versus the supply, it's still in your favor, really. And this is something that I think a lot of people who are, of course, bullish on Bitcoin fundamentally, but who really zoom out and look at the bigger picture, will be just constantly reminding themselves, especially during times like we've seen recently. Not just Bitcoin, markets crashed and price went down and people start to panic, and this is a type of thing you just need to look at to really just get your focus back in check and remember, where Bitcoin is going in the long term. And even more kind of on a smaller scale than what we just looked at, 22 million millionaires in the US, but only 21 million Bitcoin. So again, you might be striving for your 0.01, 0.1, whatever it may be. But, if you're already there and you've got it, great. But you have to keep this in mind when it comes to that supply and demand. 22 million millionaires just in the US. It is impossible for every single one of them to own a full Bitcoin. So when you look at things like Saylor, here he is, grinding to get 10% of the supply. You have to keep in mind that supply is getting lower and lower. People like Saylor, institutions, US Strategic Reserve, lost Bitcoin. Early adopters who are holding on to it, and they are not going to be selling cheap. You have to keep these things in mind, and when you look at that 21 million, it's probably a lot lower, and that is going to help Bitcoin continue to increase in price, of course. But what I don't agree here with Saylor is Bitcoin going to $50 million a coin. If you want to run the maths and we want to talk about market cap, a $20 trillion market cap, that puts Bitcoin at around $1 million. So if we're going to go 50x on top of that 20 trillion, 1,000 trillion for Bitcoin to get to that target. Now, is it clickbait? Is he fishing? I don't know. But yeah, I think that's a little bit of a stretch from Michael Saylor there. But he's got to say what he's got to say. He's got to pump his bags right, and he's doing a good job of it so far. So yeah, I mean, they're the articles that stand out. But you may take things from this that you agree with. You may take things away from this that you don't agree with. But one thing that is for sure is that it makes a lot more sense right now to be risk on with Bitcoin, to be doing what you can to stack up Bitcoin, whether it be dollar cost averaging, whether it be trading meme coins, trading altcoins, to then take profits and put them into Bitcoin rather than into USD. That was a thing that we did a lot in 2018, 2019. We were trading, it wasn't an altcoin versus USD on the chart. It was an altcoin versus BTC, and the idea was to stack as much BTC as possible, and many of them people are very happy now. So although you may feel like Bitcoin is expensive, you really have to do the math. You have to zoom out and look at where Bitcoin can go in the bigger picture. So just to quickly wrap this one up, do I think that Bitcoin can reach $1 million? The answer is yes, but I don't believe that Arthur is correct. I don't believe it's going to happen in the next 3 years. If I want to be optimistic, I'm actually thinking around maybe 2032, 2033, giving it 7-8 years from now. You know, whether the 4-year cycles continue or not, now that institutions are involved, is something that a lot of people do discuss and debate. And it doesn't really matter. You just have to really zoom out, hold on to your Bitcoin, and know that at some point it is going to be trading at way higher prices. Now, if you did enjoy this video, please do drop a like, subscribe to the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated, and do drop a comment. Let me know when you think, or if you think, Bitcoin will reach the big milestone, 7 figures, $1 million.